Let's go back to Renaissance Italy. It's a time of crazy plots, constant wars, and shaky thrones. And in the middle of all this chaos, there was one man who understood power like almost no one else, Niccolò Machiavelli. For 500 years, his very name has meant something, well, something dark and sinister. But is that really the whole story?
Right? I mean, when we call someone Machiavellian, this is what we're talking about. We immediately picture this amoral villain, someone for whom the ends always justify the means. It's basically shorthand for political evil. So, was he really this teacher of evil? Or was he something way more complicated? To figure that out, we have to jump into his world, a world of absolute chaos, betrayal, and, above all, survival.
Machiavelli's story kicks off in Renaissance Florence. Now, I want you to forget the beautiful paintings and sculptures for just a second. The Florence he knew, it was less of a museum and more of a political jungle, a total battlefield of raw, naked ambition. This was the chessboard he was playing on every single day. You had popes acting like warlords, powerful families duking it out for control, and mercenary armies who were loyal to, well, whoever paid them the most. It was a jungle, and just staying alive was an art form.
In a world like that, you can imagine that trust was fleeting, to say the least. A huge deal, a powerful alliance, could be sealed between powerful men in the evening,
Only to be completely gone by morning. In this world, you see, betrayal wasn't some shocking plot twist. It was just Tuesday. It was totally expected. And here's the key. Machiavelli wasn't just some guy watching this from the cheap seats. No, he was right in the thick of it. He was a top diplomat for the Florentine Republic for 14 years. He met with kings, he negotiated with popes, and he saw firsthand how power really worked. Not in some textbook, but in the real messy world.
For all those years, he was an important guy, a man of influence. But, in the jungle of Florentine politics, power isn't loyal to anyone for long. His career hit its absolute peak in 1509. His citizen army, an idea he pushed for, actually conquered Pisa, a huge win. But then, just 3 years later, it all came crashing down. The powerful Medici family came back, the republic he served was destroyed, and Machiavelli, he lost everything. He was arrested, falsely accused of being part of a conspiracy, and even tortured. After they let him go, he was banished to his little family farm out in the country. Imagine that. The man who once advised rulers was now a total political outcast. No status, no job, no influence. Just silence.
But here's where the story takes a turn. At night, he'd go into his study, and in this amazing letter he wrote, he described putting on his finest clothes, his old diplomatic robes, just to enter the ancient courts of rulers through his books. He was literally feeding on the only thing he had left, history. And it's right here, in this moment of total defeat, that something incredible happened. Out of that lonely exile, fueled by all those years of experience and the fresh sting of betrayal, came this short, explosive little book that would make his name immortal, The Prince. And let me tell you, it was not a fairy tale. It was a cold, hard manual for how to get and keep power. The ideas in this book were so out there, so shocking, that the Catholic Church actually banned it for 200 years. So what on earth made it so dangerous? Okay, so here's the big idea, the thing that broke from everything that came before him. He argued that a ruler can't be guided by how the world should be, by morality and ideals. To survive, you have to deal with the world as it is. That one idea pretty much changed political thinking forever. He said a successful prince has to master the nature of two different animals. You need to be the lion, strong, powerful, able to scare off your enemies. But you also have to be the fox, cunning, clever, able to see the traps and, deceive people when you have to. He thought that being one without the other was a total recipe for disaster. And that leads us to his most infamous piece of advice. He said, look, it's great to be both loved and feared, but if you have to choose just one, it's much safer to be feared. Why? Because love, he argued, is based on obligation. And people are fickle. They'll break that obligation. But fear? Fear is based on the threat of punishment. And that's a motivator that never goes away.
Now, it is so important to understand this point. Machiavelli wasn't celebrating evil. He wasn't saying, go be evil. He was making a cold, hard calculation. His logic was that a ruler who is too moral, too good to be ruthless when it's necessary, is going to fall from power. And then all their good intentions are going to fall right along with them. For him, the number one priority wasn't personal virtue. It was the survival and stability of the state itself. So, is that the whole story? Was he just the cynical advisor to tyrants? Not even close. There's a whole other side to Machiavelli that completely blows up the myth.
See, while he was in exile, he also wrote another, much longer book called The Discourses on Livy. And where The Prince is a handbook for a monarch, The Discourses is this passionate defense of republics. He even argues in it that the people as a whole are actually wiser and more reliable than any single prince. So, how do we square that? How can one man write both of these books?
And you have to remember, this wasn't just some theory for him. For his entire political career, he worked for a republic. He hated mercenaries and created a citizens' army because he believed regular people fighting for their own homes were way more reliable. He once wrote that he loved his city, Florence, more than his own soul. This was not a simple monster. He even wrote popular comedies.
So how do we make sense of this guy, this man of contradictions? What's his final, enduring legacy? At the end of the day, his real contribution wasn't being a teacher of evil. It's that he founded what we now call modern political realism. He was really the first person to strip politics away from traditional morality and just look at power with cold, unflinching honesty. He taught us to look at what leaders actually do to get and keep power, not what we wish they would do. You know, maybe the best way to think about him is with this metaphor. Machiavelli didn't invent the dark arts of politics, the betrayals, the violence, the deception. That world was already there. All he did was light a lamp so that all of us could finally see what was really going on in the shadows.
He gave us a lens, a way of looking at power that's just as relevant today as it was 500 years ago. And his work forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. When we look at our own world by the light of that lamp, what truths about power do we see?